Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle. I'll be joined by my co-host, Goody and Hall, here very, very soon to talk about the year in review and to be able to look into the matchup against the Eagles this weekend and also looking ahead towards the offseason, what to kind of look at, some players to return, and what could happen with the roster in the meantime. If you have anything that you want to contribute to the year in review, please feel free to comment away. I would love to be able to bring that up for you. And the title of today's episode is The Last Chance. And so with that being said, let's talk to our good friend, co-host of this show. What's up, Goody?
How you doing, man?
Doing all right. Before Hall gets here, I wanted to talk about the year in review. And there's going to be two parts to it. So I guess for the first part, we're going to get the ugly stuff out of the way first. Goody, what would you say was the most disappointing thing about this season?
The most disappointing thing this year, I think it's pretty obvious. It was just the overall display of what they put out on the field. The product that they put out on the field, where you saw the glimpses of people being aggressive and motivated and fired up and playing with their hair on fire. But ultimately, the product that they put on the field for the season was just overall disappointing. You know, there's always, you have these games, yeah, to say the least, exactly. But you have these games where you expect there to be ups and downs. One team comes out on the other. But this year, all of those games, we came out on the downside of those. And I would just say overall the product on the field was just very disappointing and biggest kind of letdown for this season.
Yeah, I mean, pick your poison, really. What the most disappointing thing about the season was, you could talk about the injuries, not being able to stay healthy, guys, big contributors on this football team missing time, a lot of it. Ultimately, you have to go with the defense. Going into last offseason, we all kind of said, if they could bring the rush defense, if they could bring those rankings down to about middle tier, because last season we were very bad against the run. I think we were top 5, top 10 in pass defense. And so coming into this, we said, all right, if we could have a middle of the pack kind of run defense, we could go far with this football team again, even though they have a harder schedule. That's a recipe for success for this football team if they get the same production out of their offense. You can make the argument for either or, but you'd have to go with the defense in total, completely falling apart, looking lost at times, and that has to be the most disappointing thing of this season, of the year overall, is that did not, going into year 2, you did not expect for there to be hiccups, for discrepancies, for confusion, right? And I think that's probably the most disappointing thing for overall, because we can make the argument for offense that there's injuries. You can make that excuse if you truly wanted to. Defense, the injuries happened like Dietrich Wise early on and Dorrance Armstrong. But after that, it was kind of mellow. There wasn't a crazy amount of injuries, and you can't really even attribute that excuse to it until later on in the year. But they were lost all year, Goody.
Yeah. So it's, when you think about the way that the season started, there was never really a time where the defense had a chance. It never really looked good the whole season. So it wasn't like there was a period of time when we were kind of even middle of the pack and just being consistent for consecutive weeks at a time. It was more or less after that Giants game and the D-line showed up, scaring Russell Wilson around in circles, which was awesome. I know the fan base, I was fired up looking at this,
right.
Looking at the picture that Adam Peters had kind of painted. And we were watching the D-line get after Russell Wilson all day week 1. Fast forward to week 2, 4 or 5 days later, that Thursday night game against Green Bay, that's when everything started to show. We got undressed in that game, and we never really put our clothes back on for the rest of the season. So it's really just kind of upsetting that there was never a point in time where we were able to ride something. And that's something that you're going to have to live with. We're going to have this tattooed here for the football season in 2025. But There's always next year. So
Yeah, Deluxe says on YouTube the most disappointing. Some fans turning on AP and DQ so soon after a miraculous year. It takes time to contend perennially. I agree. I would agree with you. But like Deluxe, we gotta be. You can't be surprised. I mean,
yeah,
there's fans like this in every fan base. Whenever things go awry, even in Kansas City this year, I saw people saying "Fire Andy Reid" and all this other stuff. It's like, my goodness. I mean, like when Solomon had said all is vanity, like this is what he kind of meant. Like it doesn't matter what success you do have. There's still going to be people wanting to firings happen after a bad year. It doesn't matter what has gone on. It's just all about right now. And look, I can respect it, but at the end all be all, I agree with you, Arch. Continuity is what's going to really help this football team be perennial, and it's hard to get there. But what we've learned from the past is that when you start making quick decisions and firing people, the resources dry up. You know what I mean? Now, now that we've gotten the harsh crap out of the way, the most disappointing, what would you say is the biggest surprise in a good way this year?
well, this is slim pickings.
Yeah.
Biggest surprise in a good way this year. Hmm. If I could say, I'm gonna have to kind of share this with two things. I would say just kind of seeing the growth of some of our younger players from a season ago, rookie class. Taking another step forward, being forced into action due to all the health injuries and stuff in certain positions. But that was pretty. I mean, for to call it for the season, that's pretty weak. But I definitely enjoyed seeing those guys get out there, get their burn, get their run. And I think the other thing that I am surprised by this season, enjoyed. Um, I want to say the way that we stuck it out through it. We're at the end. We got one game
Okay.
left. It's all behind us. It's all we weathered the storm. When you really think about it, now it's just time to get back to the site and just kind of repair, demolish, and just renovate. So that would be my second.
I'm with you there. I would make the argument for offense and defense. I'd say Jacob Martin was definitely one of the biggest surprises of this year, just given with what we were going with the end into the season. And Jacob Martin was kind of brought in to help just in that rotation basis, and obviously we had to lean heavily on him. And he's been impactful in a lot of ways. As much as we need more production out of that position, he still was a bright spot. Honestly, if we want to go the negative term, it's what kind of happened with the defense. Of course, that was a huge surprise to everybody included. Secondary falling apart. I think Joe Witt Jr. at the beginning of the season or before the season saying they thought Quan Martin was going to have a Pro Bowl year, and then Quan Martin just takes a gigantic step back to the point where DQ in his presser today kind of admits that the botched play by Quan on the Cavante Turpin touchdown kind of took that play away from them, and so that when you take that play away from them from the field from then on in the game, that means that Quan Martin is no longer in the game. And so it kind of just speaks to where Quan is at the moment. I hope he could get it fixed, but that's definitely a surprise. And offensively, you'd have to make the argument for Chris Paul. Not a lot of people were singing the praises of Chris Paul to the point where he would, move Brandon Coleman out of the way and take the starting job against the Raiders and so on and so forth. And he's done a fantastic job. He hasn't given up that spot, and a lot of credit to him. I think definitely think that Chris Paul deserves a head nod because that's somebody looking for a contract this season. And given with how he played so far. And then the other one I'd make the argument for, I'm not sure how you feel about it, would be Traylon Burks.
Oh yeah, that one's a sweet one. That's like a little bit of cherry on top with kind of seeing these new guys touching the field and getting those reps and just seeing what they can do. Because ultimately you have these guys on your roster. You don't really have an anticipation of them playing for an extended amount of games and snaps when you have your starters in the lineup. So for us to again be able to see these guys have to go out and get guys, get Traylon Burks, which it was a joy watching him. Even in the limited time that he has been here, he has definitely shown, at least from the eye test, the ability to have a pretty cool ceiling, and maybe a little future here in Washington with what he adds to the offense. But yeah, I could definitely go with that. one thing I wanted to touch on based on, the first thing you said about Jacob Martin, it's kind of I don't know if this is it's kind of trending towards being a scheme kind of situation. Whereas you had Fowler here that first year of the regime, and he was very successful getting to the quarterback. This year earlier before Dorrance Armstrong got hurt, he was kind of taking that on as well, getting a lot of production, getting to the quarterback, and then you have Jacob Martin to follow. So I don't know if that's something that is scheme related, or if that's just the talent stepping up because why wouldn't that all work at one time? Dorrance Armstrong and Jacob Martin.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point because it's like, if you have more chances to prove yourself, you're gonna have more chances to be able to do something. And I understand what you're saying is that really Jacob Martin doing well, or is that just because the opportunity met with him? And I totally get that. Obviously Dante Fowler is a different animal in itself in terms of what he
Yeah,
was asked to do. But I get what you're saying, and I do agree to an extent. I do think that that was one area where we weren't expecting him to get a lot of that run as much as he was, but he was productive, and so we have to give something to the defense. We can't just crap on him all episode.
yeah,
Come
yeah,
on, man, come on, help
yeah.
me out a little bit. But yes, I agree with you. Now, what would you say would be the best way to attack the offseason? Right now, currently, Washington is going in with 81 million in cap space and not giving the thought of let's give about like 5-6 million to work with in terms of like walking away from possibly guys like Marshawn Lattimore and others. Don't know how that's going to go down, but they could save money in other ways. So around 85 mil. How do you think that they should attack the offseason with that much money in cap and 6 draft picks?
Yeah, so obviously with the limitation on the draft picks, you have six, so you're not going to get too many guys there. You can still get very, very good guys there. That doesn't automatically mean you're going to have a draft where these guys are going to be, you know, on the street 2 years from now, kind of thing. So don't discount that. But with the cap space and free agency, obviously we have a lot of holes in our own roster coming up this season. So I know Adam Peters right now, he's probably spinning around the clock trying to really put together this plan of how it's going to look. But first, you want to assume who do you want to keep back in house? Are we bringing anybody back? You want to see who's going to be the fit, right? So you have to kind of go through your own filter first. Once you kind of have those guys selected, where those guys are, I couldn't tell you. Once you have those guys kind of selected in place, then you kind of go out and look at the market and see what other areas you could attack. We have to spend money. I feel like this season, this off season, I feel like we do have to spend money, but we have to spend it wisely. And I don't feel like that's too tall of an ask. I just think you have to kind of be prepared, know what you want to go for, and know where your value is set at. But we definitely have to spend money. We have to bring some guys in here. This defense has been after this season, and again, talent versus scheme, whatever you want to call it. There's just too much missing in terms of the production that we had for the whole season. So I would say definitely collect the pieces that you want to keep from your roster, and then you got to go out and spend some money on some guys, and then sit back and swing for the fences in the draft.
Yeah, because with 85 mil, you'd have to imagine they're gonna have questions in regards to like Debo Samuel, right? Like, what are they gonna do with Debo? And then everyone's gonna ask a question about Brandon Ayuk. Are we gonna bring in Brandon Ayuk? What are we gonna do at wide receiver? We're gonna go high in the draft, and that's the big question here: is where Washington is going to divulge those assets. I would imagine that Chris Paul is gonna want a contract as well. Hopefully, we'll get a hometown discount, but I think you have to look at linebackers like Devin Lloyd, like Quay Walker, and to be able to really help yourself and to build up this defense as much as you possibly can. If we learned anything, it's insane. I saw the stat from the Philly Buffalo game last night where no team since 1987 has won a game without completing a pass in the second half. And the Eagles obviously broke that last night, which goes to show that defense does go a long way for you. You don't even have to convert a pass. You could just have a phenomenal defense and be able to hold you tight just at the very end to hold on. And that's what we're kind of seeing here is like you can have a high powered offense with a quarterback like Josh Allen, but when it comes to getting banged up late in the year, defenses tend to have the advantage in these playoffs and late in the year, and that's what you want to ultimately build. So right now, I think defense is what you really want to cater towards, and you want to be able to divulge as much assets as you possibly can, but not to like the older veterans like we kind of did this year, or guys that you don't really know. We need immediate production, and I'm not trying to push out of the way Jordan McGee or anybody else. I'm not trying to do that, but just trying to add bodies to the room and to be able to help get after the quarterback, because we do have to remember that Dante Fowler was considered outside linebacker. Von Miller is considered an outside linebacker. And adding somebody like that can get after the passer would be monumental for this team's success, especially in the secondary, man. It's something we got to be able to do. And what in the offseason, I want them to go after a corner that fits their system. You know, it's funny because they say that Mikey is not a very good press man corner, but Marshawn Lattimore is. And then when you look at Trey Amos can play. He's got long arms. He could play zone. He could play man. So it's like, what is our identity and what we're requesting out of our DBs? Like, what are we
Yeah.
really going towards in terms of what we're actually gathering? And so that has to be a big discussion so far for Washington's defense is get the identity down right, get exactly what you want to be able to attribute to. I don't think that corner should be what you go through free agency in terms of big money, but I do think that you do divulge another asset there as well. And I don't know what you would feel like doing with the defensive line because there's lots of questions there, Goody.
Yeah, on the defensive line, there's a lot of those short contracts, those 1 year deals. We obviously went out and got Kinlaw for that 3 years. We have Johnny Newton for another year, and then we have his option. Deron Payne, I would say, would be the biggest question mark. Whether we continue to, bring him back, get him another contract here, which would be for me phenomenal. I would love to give Deron Payne another contract in Washington, keep him here. But if you think about that scenario with Jazon Newton, Javon Kinlaw, and Deron Payne coming back, you definitely have your basis, for your defensive line, at least for the next 2 or 3 years. And then, of course, you over those 2 or 3 years, you could always cycle throughout free agency and go to the draft to try to get some more depth there and potentially have somebody come and kind of take over as the starter in that position. But I do like where the defensive line is. It's just more or less those short contracts that we have, the free agents that are coming. You have to kind of figure out who you want to keep around. You got to think about what you're going to do with Deron Payne. Me personally, I'm bringing the Payne back. I want the Payne to stay in the burgundy and gold. It was tough to see JA go, but to lose both of them would be real tough. But yeah, I think the D line is good. They just have to figure out what they're going to do with Deron Payne.
Yeah, and like Mike Reed says, he likes the pain because it and lets him know that he's alive. You know, as weird as
There
that
you
is.
go.
Um, it's going to be a big question, and I ultimately do think that defensive line is obviously a need in some sort of regard, as much as we want it. Like you need future there, and could you make an argument for Johnny Newton? Of course you could, but overall you do need that stabilization, that stability to know what you're going for in the future. There, it's just where on the totem pole is it, and I would just much rather go down the route of adding and supplementing through the draft. There's last year was a great defensive tackle draft to be able to go get one. We didn't, and so now we're kind of in a position where, all right, what are you going to do overall? And obviously, defensive line is big in that regard. With wide receiver, with few and far between draft picks, it's going to be hard, man. Like for Shaheed is one guy that's available. Jacoby Myers was supposed to be on the market, but he re-signed his. He got extended with the Jaguars. Good for him, of course. So it's going to be hard. How you're going to be able to add some talent here, and I do think that bringing back Debo is the right move. To be honest, like we truly didn't get to see them in a rhythm all season long. I would like to see what that would look like because we kind
Yeah.
of
So it for Debo, you got early in the season with Terry being out, you got to see Debo play in a different kind of like filter. He was playing like almost traditional wide receiver, and he was having success. He was our leading, yards, receptions, everything, touchdowns, and that was him kind of playing a traditional wide receiver, role. Whereas his kind of niche, obviously, is being that gadget, being on the move, screens, getting the ball in his hands in space. So we didn't get to see him do that at his full potential. Even when we had Terry and Debo here, these past couple of weeks, it's still obviously we're with our third quarterback, right? We never really got to see it go. Um, I'm willing to run it back just as much as you are, just because I can tell by the person that Debo is, and how he's kind of adapted to being here in Washington. He's openly said it. It kind of gave him a revival, made him remember why he loved playing football, just having fun, being competitive, obviously. But I want to see that again. That would be very, very dangerous for the league when everything's running on all cylinders. And like Cliff asked for, if Cliff had a Christmas gift, it would be to have all his guys at training camp this offseason so that they can get this offense rolling.
And it will be telling what the Jaguars do with Brian Thomas Jr. That is going to be intriguing to see. I know that was a name brought up at the trade deadline. Hall should be here very, very soon. Deluxe asked this question on YouTube, and I have to ask you to kind of explain it just a little bit more if you can. He asks, how do you rate this free agency coming compared to last year? Do you mean heading into the offseason, comparing it to last offseason? Is that what you kind of mean? Because I would love to be able to answer that for you, Deluxe. Now, I do have a question for you. Do you play fantasy?
Yes, I do.
All right, so we'll get into that when Hall gets here, because I do want to hear about what Hall's got going on overall in fantasy. This first question from the Colonel. Clearly, the honeymoon with AP and DQ is over following a dismal season, despite the fact we were crippled by injuries, no pun intended. Aside from roster changes, free agent acquisitions, and of course the 2026 NFL Draft, my question is about the coaches. What are we going to do? Where do you see change besides the obvious at defensive coordinator? Also, please address the rumors of Cliff Kingsbury's departure.
Yeah, in terms of coaching changes, I know the question mentioned the obvious as defensive coordinator, but even with that being the case, whether they decide to hire outside of the building for that, there's going to be obviously trickle down on who that defensive coordinator wants on his staff. So that could move a lot more people into either out of a job or just into other positions, more or less out of a job. Um, but other than that, obviously we had the Tavita get picked up to get a coaching gig in college, and the quarterbacks coach now. Will he keep that? You would assume, right? You would assume so. The idea of Cliff Kingsbury getting another gig as a head coach, for me, I really don't have a pulse on that. I don't know what's going on in his mind, where he wants to be. I don't really know. Um, the media will kind of say things just to stir a pot up and have a title on something. But if Cliff Kingsbury is back, I don't see too many changes to the offensive staff. I think everything kind of runs it back. But obviously, if Cliff's out of here, then we're talking about a whole nother that's a whole nother jar of worms right there.
Yeah, and it's a hard question with Cliff because if somebody was smart, they would see what he did with Jaden last year and say, all right, I'm willing to go to bed on that. And I wouldn't say it's like an NFL based thing. I think it's more on college. College teams are uh, being able to throw a little bit more money around and be able to bring somebody in. And obviously, Cliff is very good at being able to engage with young people. So I think he'd be great for the college game, of course. I'm not sure if that's out of the realm of possibility. I know he's itching for it. And I also know that Dan Quinn probably wouldn't want to hold him back from an opportunity like that as well. But that brings into question what do you ultimately do on offense, right? And Brian Johnson is there, who's had his own rumors of going back to college and doing things. And do you bring up David Blau? What happens with Anthony Lynn? Would Anthony Lynn take over as offensive coordinator? And I think that going into this offseason, I think that DQ is going to have the mindset of wanting guys that have been there and done that. And so I think that Anthony Lynn would make the most sense with David Blau possibly being like the passing game coordinator. If, hypothetically speaking, if Cliff and if Brian Johnson leave, I think that would be the replacement there. The defense is a huge question, Colonel, because from
Yeah.
this year, what do you have to walk away from? And so it begs the question, if Dan Quinn is loyal to his staff defensively, you'd have to imagine he'd have to bring in somebody, if it's from the outside, that they would have to be comfortable and relative to the already scheme that has been here, so that you can retain those coaches, that they wouldn't want to wash everything. Because the last thing you'd want to do is bring in a defensive coordinator here and tell him you have to keep everybody that's on the staff already and just call the plays. I don't think that's the way it's going to go down. I would imagine that DC being brought in here is going to take quite a bit of money, and they'd want to bring in their own people. That's a big question heading into this offseason. Obviously, Al Harris is the first one that comes to mind. I know others have said Brian Flores, and to be perfectly honest with you, I don't see Minnesota walking away from him as much as other people like to speculate and say that's a possibility. I just don't know how, if you're Minnesota, you'll walk away from the one thing that you were doing not great at, phenomenally at,
Yeah.
or literally suffocating people. Like if you're Kevin O'Connell, you're sitting there saying, no, 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 I need you to retain him. I need you to make sure you bring him back, cast a check, do whatever you need to do. If you really want this to be a Super Bowl team, I need that guy as DC to help my offense get back on track. And all you got to do is trust me. And I think Kevin O'Connell has like warranted that trust so far in Minnesota. So I really don't see Brian Flores leaving. I know Brandon on Twitter today speculated on Jim Schwartz from Cleveland, saying it would feed families. And my point being is we don't have Myles Garrett. You know, like Myles Garrett said after that Pittsburgh game, he said that Pittsburgh was so worried about him that they didn't care about winning. And I know that that's his opinion, but I understand exactly what he's saying. And they really care. Like, do you have that on Washington? So you're getting a different defense. Does Jim Schwartz have that relative with everybody on the coaching staff? I don't know. I don't think so. And so it's a really hard, difficult question to understand. And the offseason will tell more, Colonel. I'm sorry to cop out on you.
Yeah, I would be super open to and on the defensive side to bringing in somebody else from outside, getting not necessarily in terms of getting a fresh mind, not necessarily a young guy. I want somebody that has a history, has a track record, not too high prolific, but just somebody that's just going to change this thing. Ultimately, whoever that person is that rights the ship, I will be right on that ship with them. I'm not going to sit here and handpick, and if they don't get this guy, then I'm going to be upset. Whoever gets it done right, I'm right behind you. So I will be looking, forward to seeing how that shakes down, even if they do retain, somebody in house and kind of, promote them to DC. I would have to kind of digest it for a little bit, but ultimately it's going to come down to what the results are on the field, and we won't really see that until next year anyway. So that search is going to be on my radar.
Yeah, and Deluxe expanded a little more on his question of how do you rate this free agency coming compared to last year? Quality and quantity of players available last year was viewed as a thinner or weaker free agency.
I don't have a pulse on the actual market coming up just yet. Probably going around this next weekend or 10 to 12 days, I'll be able to look at it because obviously our season will be in completion, and I'll have a little bit more time to kind of look forward to how we could better this roster with the guys that are coming available.
Yeah, so it depends on which team that you are and your needs. I saw Ian Cummings say a lot of teams are needing edge, and there isn't like a crazy like Faoa from I think the Ravens is coming in free agency. He was listed as a top free agent available, but it's not like because teams typically do not allow defensive ends to get to free agency. I'm pretty sure Trey Hendrickson is a possibility as a free agent as well. Nobody knows how expensive that's going to be to grab the services of Trey Hendrickson, but I would say that it is weaker in the sense of what Washington would need, and you can make the argument Washington needs a lot. I get it, but just saying, like, do we have all that much to allocate into one person in particular to kind of help with things? And I don't think that's ultimately what's going to really help with it all. I think the best way case scenario in order to bring in some good, valuable talent is through trade or the draft. I feel like that's the only way that you could go about it. What's up, Paul?
Yo,
So, man, how was the
What's going
Wizards
on?
game?
it was a good time. was in this like Devil's Backbone Brewing Company suite that they got up in there, and it was like unlimited beer and wine, like select beers, select wines, and they gave you like a food voucher. They had like a little spread laid out, and they had like brisket, mac and cheese, and like some cornbread and some salad and stuff like that. So, needless to say, I got it in.
Yeah, and they won too. I was like, look at him. Look at
Yeah,
them
though, I'm
showing
trying to tell
up.
you, 8-0 in live events. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just
Oh
me.
man, solid.
Someone buy me some season tickets. We might go undefeated. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, like I said on Twitter, but you're 0 for 30 in jersey selections.
Yeah, no, I
Uh,
might be retiring from the Jersey game at this
You know,
point.
that was actually a question I had written down, like a note I had written down. What would be, aside from Jaden Daniels, what would be the safest Commanders jersey to buy?
Don't ask me. I bought a Jaden Daniels jersey, and you see what happened this year.
ooh, that's
Well,
a
in terms of who's actually going to be on the team, who's productive aside from JD5, what's the safest jersey to buy?
you can make the
That is a
argument
good
for
question.
Laramie Tunsil. You could, but until he signs that contract, you don't ultimately
Yeah,
know. So I would
exactly.
say it would be Trey Amos.
Okay, that's a good one. That's a good one. My guess, and that one, I don't know why I didn't think of that. Or would have been Samer still.
Yeah, I was gonna say Amos would be probably my number one seed, but you could definitely make a case for Laramie Tunsil as well, just because he's gonna get at least a 3 to 4 year extension here and probably pay out all those years. So
The Rim Reaper, Trey Amos. Have you seen those videos?
No.
This is so weird. The dude crawling on the ground outside of that big building. He's like, "Who wants the Rim Reaper?" It's very weird. Now I wanted to talk about fantasy a little bit. The Arch asked, did they have the big cookies in the suite?
nah, they didn't have any cookies.
No, they didn't
Did
have
they
the
have any
cookies.
dessert? I don't think they had any dessert. Now that I think
The,
about it.
the dessert was beer. That's what it
Yeah,
was.
pretty much. Yeah.
Hey, but boys, like tonight. It's coming down to the wire for fantasy football championships. I don't know how you guys did this season in your fantasy leagues. I am inquiring minds would like to know as much as nobody cares about your fantasy team. I get it. I just want to talk about it. It's the championship week, dude. It's the last game. So, Hole, how did you fare this season?
Horrible. All leagues didn't make the playoffs. All league except for the podcast league, which I won because at least I won something. Right? But
Yeah.
all the money leagues that I was in that I usually at least minimum make the playoffs in, I did not make the playoffs in. I got booted out the last week of the season in Gavin's league by points after being in like second place the entire season. My big money league, I was pretty much the Commanders. I was like 2-1, 3-1, 3-2, and then proceeded to lose 6 straight, 7 straight, whatever it was. They finally got a win. I finally got a win. Horrible season, but there's always next year, right? Just like the Commanders.
Yep. I was 3 for 5 in making the playoffs. I was the third overall seed in my family league because it's set up in like the divisions. And so like I was like 11-4, but I had to get booted on the third seed because my brother was had the second overall seed owning the other division. I hate the division thing. Let's just do straight up best records get in, and that's what we did for the church league, where I'm facing our lead pastor Jim in the championship. And it's funny because he texted me on Sunday because I think he had a good amount of guys playing. I had a good amount of guys playing, and I said to him, "Look, I wouldn't mind losing to you, but just to say that this game's going to come down to Monday Night Football, the way that it was rolling out." And he texted me later on. He's like, "I got to be honest. Congrats on the win." I was like, "Dude, you are insane. You have Josh Allen, James Cook, and Puka Nakua, who can all put up 30 in a flash. So like, I don't want to hear that the game's already over. And what do you know? I'm only up 10, and He's got tonight Puka Nakua, and he's got the tight. Is it a tight end? No, Drake London is who he has. And then I have
Yeah.
rolling in. I have Bijan, Kyle Pitts, and the Rams kicker. So I was like, it's coming down to Monday night, man,
Wow.
for the
That's
championship.
gonna be a tight one. That's
Yeah.
gonna be a tight one.
This man
I mean,
Kevin,
if Kyle Pitts has one of those those games, he's been on a surge on this back end. I'm sure he helped you get to where you are with a couple of these previous weeks, but that's gonna be tough. You got a 10 point head start on him, and you guys got both some dogs going. So
Yeah,
This
my
man Kevin freaking just had his kid, his second kid. But I guess he deserves the money. This man about to win the league for the third time. Like, pretty sure he's like back to back, almost 3-time back to back champion. I'm like, and you already know how he is. He's like about to run his mouth for the whole entire next couple months. Like, but he's a Raiders fan, so at least he got something going for him, right?
yeah, and look, I told you to tell him that as soon as I left the league is when he started winning. So just remember that. Just
I blame
remember
it on
that.
Gavin. Every time Gavin starts talking and chirping anybody in this league, they all of a sudden just become champions. Like I'm just like, bro.
Stop talking. Just stop talking. Now, I wanted to get in. Or Goody, what did you say what you were doing in
yeah,
fantasy?
my seasons were not worth a review. Not worth it. I run two leagues for the past 10 years, and this year was just terrible in both leagues. So I just got to get ready to pay out. So I'm watching. I know who's in third place. I play at third place, get your money back. Um, and then, first place gets the grand, and then second place gets, their portion. So I'm watching tonight. I know who's in third place for both leagues already, but the champions are going to come out tonight. So we'll see what I got to pay.
Yeah, it was very funny because the AV director, I'm close with him, and I played him last week to get into the championship. And we were talking before the game, and I kept telling him, I was like, go with your gut at quarterback, because he wasn't sure who to go with. He wanted either Jackson Dart or he was going to go with Matt Stafford. So ultimately, he benches Matt Stafford because Devontae's out, and he goes with Jackson Dart, who does nothing. And then I ended up putting up like 190 points. Like Kyle Pitts definitely helped with that, like 30 plus points. But I also have like Chris Olave, Bijan, and so I think I started Joe Burrow last week. So it was like I just exploded, and he was like, "I'm just happy to know that my mistake didn't cost me the game." And, and
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
always a good feeling. It's like, all right, I had nothing that I could have done to win this, and it's like, all right.
yeah,
Pretty
I
sure
talked.
this man Cracky Kevin put up like 180 plus points, like legitly, like every single week. Like he
Yeah,
had Puka as his keeper because we do keeper league,
yeah.
and he randomly got in on Puka at the ground level a couple years ago. But he got Puka, and then he had Drake May, who obviously is balling this year. And then he had who else? He had he had Trevion Henderson, who came on in the second half of the year. Like I don't know how, but this man's team was like legitly just like unstoppable. Like it was so whack.
Yeah, it is what it is, man. Sometimes good things happen to good people. Cracky's the man. Cracky's the
Yeah. So why
man.
did he get it? No, I'm just joking.
Now the next question from the Colonel Hall: is there a single player in the 2026 NFL Draft that could fall to us at number 7 that you would be absolutely thrilled with, never looking back with regret for not moving back for more picks?
Yeah, just off the surface of like not even really looking at the top, let's call it 8 to 10 picks, 8 to 10 top tier guys that are projected to go in the top 10 right now. Obviously, the big name that everyone's talking about, it's pick number 7 is going to be Caleb Downs, the safety from Ohio State, and I know everyone talks about positional value and whatever they may be. I would say that a team like the Lions, who target guys and say, "Hey, we're not worried about positional value. We're worried about what he can add value wise to our team." And when they draft Jameer Gibbs in the top like 8 picks or whatever it was, they drafted I think it was Jack Campbell a little bit higher than a lot of people had him, and look how
That
that
was
stuff
my
turned out.
boy.
Yeah, look how that turned out for them. So um, positional value out the window of Caleb Downs is there at number 7. I know everyone wants wide receiver to pair with Terry and eventually take over for Terry at some
You
point.
want a wide receiver? Don't play that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be mad if they took a wide receiver at 7, but
You were advocating for it.
depends who's there. If there was an edge defender there that they think can be like a legit game wrecker, like not only this year but like years and years down the line, obviously that's going to be a guy to look at, a position to look at. But for me, I feel like going into this process, everyone said from the get go that Caleb Downs is maybe the first or second just overall player in this draft, and he's probably the safest pick in this draft. So I feel like Dan Quinn and whoever the next defensive coordinator is could possibly do wonders with a guy like Caleb Downs and hopefully transform this defense. a little bit.
Yeah, I do think that you can make the case for Arvel Reese. You can make the case for Bailey. Caleb Downs in particular. Caleb Downs is a very good cover safety. You could use him down in the box in that kind of hybrid safety linebacker type role on passing downs to kind of solidify the middle of the field. A very good tackler coming up and making a play. So I would not regret any of those two guys. Jordan Tyson, I would not regret that selection whatsoever. I think that guy is an all-around fantastic wide
Big Jordan
receiver.
Tyson guy. Only thing I just the little bit thing is the
See,
injury
I told
history.
you. I told you.
That's what I look. I've been like Jordan Tyson.
I know you.
I look at the wide receivers, but I've been a big Jordan Tyson guy forever. Carnell Tate, we'll see. He might be the next Terry. Who knows? But just based off of athleticism, just overall, just talent, I've been a big Jordan Tyson guy.
And then there's Bain from Miami, that very heavy-footed from a edge guy, more like your prototypical edge kind of rusher where he's going to set the edge for you, but it's not like you're getting that explosion, that speed. It's much more so of like a big train. You could ultimately say is that dude very heavy-footed, not light on his feet, and that's some guys you could look at that you would be happy with not trading back. And as much as everyone loves the idea of trading back, but not every team loves the idea of trading up. And so like that has to be taken into consideration. Typically teams that are trading up are going to try to target that top 5 in a lot of respects. Now the next Goody, do you have something for that?
I do not. I think if we just go and I'm all about planting the flag and picking a premier player at our position that we're in, and running with the horses like that.
Yeah, I do think that we need a defensive identity, and getting Caleb or one of those edge guys would certainly help with that. Now,
Also, if you talk about trading back, everyone's like, oh, we need to trade back and get more picks. And then you look back at 2020 when everyone was like, oh, yeah, we traded back. Look at all the picks we got. Look, we won the draft. Meanwhile, Kyle Hamilton is balling out in Baltimore. Chris Olave, finally, when he's healthy, is balling out in New Orleans. And then Josh Doxson was here for a year.
Chris Olave this season reminds me a lot of Terry McLaurin. Reminds me a lot of Terry, and everyone's screaming for Chris Olave and everything. It's like, this is what this guy's been doing too. Like, come on, put some respect on my man's name. Now, next question from the Colonel. Goody. Not a Washington Commanders question. I'm still getting a sore knee, kicking myself in the ass for not following my instincts and grabbing Malik Willis in fantasy the other night. Instead, I started Jacoby Brissett and Trevor Lawrence in different leagues. Each scored between 21 and 24 points. Malik Willis scored 33 fantasy points over Baltimore. Do you think Malik played himself into a possible contract year with quarterback-needy teams like the Raiders or the Jets? And I just want to say the Colonel is playing my wife in his league, and then he's also playing my brother in my league, and then in my personal Ronick family league, my wife is playing my brother. So it's like a weird 3 different championships going on. And I'm hoping my wife wins all of those.
That's intense.
And my wife is very angry because people try to say that she cheats by that I'm helping her. And so we're trying to quell those rumors because it's not true.
Yeah, I think we all know if there's any family involved in fantasy leagues that nobody's really helping each other because nobody wants to give up that, that right to call themselves a champ. That's just like we got to get past that in 2026.
I feel like she knows what she's doing. Like, didn't we have her and like Jamie in a league like back in the day? Yeah.
Yes, but you do. My wife ultimately doesn't know anybody that she's picking. Like we have to be honest. Like she'll look them up.
I feel like she did have a lot of Redskins back then. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, but it's not like I'm telling her you should go and select Puka Nacua. It's more like she's drafting Puka. And I'm texting her saying that was a very good selection, baby. Good job. Like, it's not like I'm helping her out as it's making it seem. But that being said, Goody, do you think Malik Willis played himself into a possible contract year?
Yes, without a doubt. Malik Willis, he's one of those guys that came into the league, a few years ago, and he was expected to have a quick start, hit the ground running, and it didn't work that way. but he stayed consistent in himself, and he just kind of fell in line and just did the work. Right, he got another job in Green Bay, sat on the bench just like any other backup, showing up day in and day out and just being ready for his moment. And when those opportunities happen, they don't happen for a reason. It's whether you're ready to take that moment, grab it, or if you're going to sit there and just let that pass by. And he's obviously grabbed that moment with the league the way it is in terms of quarterback needy teams. You're definitely going to have a lot of people calling Green Bay. Whether that actually does happen is going to be up in the air. We'll see. It's going to be very interesting. But Malik Willis has definitely been balling. In terms of him making that decision between Trevor Lawrence, Jacoby Brissett, and Malik Willis, sorry. I wouldn't beat him. I wouldn't beat yourself up too much just because that's a tough one. And it's not like they didn't. They got 20 plus points, so it's not like you really didn't do yourself too dirty. If they had done something like less than 10, then you can really kick yourself. But yeah, that's a tough call between Jacoby, Trevor Lawrence, and Malik Willis. You're really kind of throwing it up in the air, but better luck next year.
Look, man, I love Obi-Wan Jacoby myself. I'm a big fan. But I would not have made that decision. I would have gone with Malik Willis just based on what he's been able to do with that offense, learning and growing in that offense. He certainly has earned himself a payday. I'd be willing to go as far as say that Tyler Snoop Huntley has as well. The way that he's performed in Baltimore, he's gone under the radar of what he's kind of done with them and kind of bringing them back to life. They tried to go to Cooper Rush, and that completely fell on its face. And I know that Baltimore fans want to keep Tyler Snoop there, but I would be loving to be able to go get Tyler Snoop to be our backup and help this offense in case anything does happen. But I've been saying for weeks that if we had to move on from Mariota, that I'd be willing to go down the Malik Willis route. So unlike you, Colonel, I did pull the trigger on Malik Willis to come and help me in one league because I just knew what he was going to do, and I'm not surprised in the slightest by his ability. He showed a lot at Liberty, and he's grown a lot since then. Being in Matt LaFleur's offense has been phenomenal for him. If I'm Minnesota, I'm giving a call to as much as Green Bay's probably not going to trade side of the division, but I'd be giving a call as Tyler Snoop.
Yeah, like Goody said, as far as the fantasy part of it goes, I mean, Trevor Lawrence, I mean, he's legitimately been balling for the past like 2 or 3 weeks. So
Yeah.
we couldn't really go wrong starting to him. Who would have thought he would have turned back into the previous Trevor Lawrence that people kind of were like questioning against the Colts, who were kind of out of it. Even though he played a decent game
yesterday versus the Colts.
He had a decent game, yeah. But I'm just talking about he was putting up like 4 touchdown games, 5 touchdown games.
I saw Jeremy Fowler put on Twitter today that no other quarterback has put up as many points as Trevor Lawrence has in the past 3 weeks combined.
Yeah, that's my point.
Exploded,
like,
yeah.
I'm talking about like as far as like the previous couple of weeks when he's putting up 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, throwing for 300 yards, running for another 50, 60, compared to like those couple of weeks, compared to what he did yesterday, which was still a very good game. It was kind of like, but again, couldn't go wrong with that. Jacoby Brissett, who's like a fantasy like sleeper going against that poopy Bengals defense. I can see the matchup like thing where you went with that. And Malik Willis was the wild card as far as like, are the Ravens going to come out and play like it was cold out there? Like, was LaFleur going to just run the ball all day and like kind of limit Malik Willis, or was he going to unleash him? And obviously he unleashed him. So, but like Goody said, you can't really kick yourself in them too hard because now they only scored like double-digit points. And
The only reason I would not have taken Jacoby Brissett is because he had been thrown in after Kyler's injury and he had success. But I feel like backup quarterbacks don't have that success for a long period of time, and I feel like he was kind of at the end of that, like,
Oh, which leads me to my next point about them having starting jobs. Normally in this league, like, unless like you're the Sam Darnolds, the Geno Smiths, like, yes, we do see guys kind of turn their careers around, resurrect their careers after going to really bad situations. And I do think that Matt LaFleur comes from that tree of Kevin O'Connell, Kyle Shanahan tree of, if you come to my organization, come to my team and sit for a year or two, learn, you're going to leave here a better quarterback and do yourself some good down the line. So I do think that he definitely earned himself some money. Could I see a team giving him like a 1 or 2 year deal to be like a bridge quarterback if they draft a young guy, or they don't go the route of drafting a young guy and they can just like, hey, you're a placeholder for our next guy. Unless you start balling out, then hey, maybe you become our guy. But I just think that, I mean, I'll say this, and he made a perfect time to come out and show the world that, hey, I can be a starter in this league in a QB draft that's not really the strongest right now. And there's 5, 6, 7 teams that are going to be looking for quarterbacks. So, I mean, if I'm Miami, I'm like, hey, do I want to go with Quinn Ewers, who's really cheap, or Malik Willis? If I'm, like you said, the Minnesota Vikings, do we stay with JJ? Do you want to go Malik Willis? The Raiders, I mean, I could see Malik Willis being a Pittsburgh Steeler, to be honest with you. He kind of fits that mold of like Tomlin and the Steelers. So we'll see, but he definitely earned himself some money, so I'm happy for him.
I'm right there with you, dude. I am I am of that realm myself. Now, this next question from Tim Towner, go to you, Goody. My understanding is the tiebreaker for the draft order in the first round is conference record. I think. I'm pretty sure it's strength of schedule, which is why Cleveland holds it over us at 6 and we're at 7. Then he says, and if so, I show us picking 6th right now, we're 7, and are certain to finish with a pick between 3 and 7. That said, and we stay put, is there any chance we take an offensive player with that pick? And if so, who do you think that would be?
If we're staying at that 3 to 7 range, or even 7, chances of us,
A lot of things have to go right for Washington and move up to 3. A lot of
yeah,
things.
Just to get up
yeah,
to 6, there's got to be a couple
Yeah.
things that go right.
yeah. I mean, I'm content with 7. Seven is not a bad spot. Ultimately, I see the only way that and I don't know what player this would be. I would have to probably go wide receiver here, or a running back. It would be very difficult to choose, or maybe even offensive lineman. Not sure, but the only way I see that actually being, making sense is if you have that first 6 picks go strictly defense. At least the top premier defense throughout that first 6 picks. And then it kind of leaves you with less value at the defense position at the number 7th pick. And then you kind of just feel okay with picking offense because you're picking for the highest value. But ultimately, I don't know what that player would be. But the only way I see that happening, like I said, is if the first 6 picks are you're taking, you got the safeties gone, you got the edges gone, and your rest of your defense isn't really worth that 7th pick. Maybe that puts you in a position to trade back at that point. But if you're going offense, that will be the way that I see that happening.
Yeah, I think it'd be wide receiver, if anything, if we're going down that route. Look, I know everyone loves the idea of the running back, but like I said in the last episode, you got a lot of production out of your running back that was selected in the 7th round last season. Do we really think that going down running back the first round is going to really help this football team overall? And I don't.
Look at the
I don't believe so.
Raiders. Look at the Raiders.
Right. Now, I will say this. What are the chances that Washington picks an offensive player in the first round? I'd say it's around 50%. Very confident to say it's around 50% that they go offense in the first round. It's either offense or defense, my friend. I don't think they're going special teamer. So if I'm going to do
You're
anything,
not
I'm
going
going
to
to
get
say
the Tressway replacement at number 7?
right. But I'll say like the guy that look I really like is Jordan Tyson. I think that overall that would be if you're gonna go offense, that's the route you go down. He's an all around route runner. He's a deep threat. He get fantastic footwork, getting off the line of scrimmage, creating separation. Very good hands, dependable at very crucial times, and he's got a nose for the end zone. So I think Jordan Tyson is going to be a fantastic professional wide receiver.
Is that the guy from Arizona State?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Sweet.
Yeah,
Yeah, I definitely saw some of his stuff.
Yeah, he's a baller. Yeah, I'm with you. I think that if they were to go offense in that first round at pick number 7, 6, 5, whatever it may be, there's only really 2 options because the only offensive players really projected in the top 10 right now are obviously Jordan Tyson, Carnell Tate, 2 wide receivers, and
Jeremiah
an
Love.
offense, Jeremiah Love, which, like you said, I know people are like, "Oh, Bill's not an every down back, but he might not be RB1." But if you just kind of, what is he at, like 700 something yards on the season right now?
Something like
If
that.
you, yeah, if people would, if he got the touches throughout the entire season that people thought he was going to get, there's probably a good chance he goes over 1,000 yards this year. So, like, do we really need to replace a possible if he got the touches everyone thought he was going to get? a potential 1,000-yard back that we need to replace that you got in the 7th round that is uber cheap right now? I don't think so. So, and the other guy is a offensive tackle. I think that's projected in the 1st round. Obviously, we have Laramie Tunsil. That position is going to be locked up. Do we need to go running back? I would say no. Personally, I love Jeremiah Love, great player. I think he's going to be a baller. I don't know if we need to draft a running back right there with Bill being in the backfield right now. And like I said, so the only other 2 wide receivers or all the offensive players would be Jordan Tyson or Carnell Tate. And I'm a big Jordan Tyson guy. So if he's there at 7, if it's between him and Caleb Downs, honestly, like I wouldn't know which way to go. I don't. I'd be like Reed on a Saturday night. I don't know which way to go, but
You don't know which hole to go in.
yeah, like you couldn't go wrong with either of those picks. I feel like so. I'm a big Jordan Tyson guy. If they go offense at pick number 7, for me it would be Jordan Tyson.
Yeah, and also we got to take into consideration as well that Washington could not. Well, even if they win this weekend, I think they still are picking at 7. So we're look forward to a win this weekend, guys, against the Philadelphia Eagles. I would love nothing better than for that to happen. Just no fighting, except for in between the whistles. Get under that chin strap. Jalen Carter likes doing that himself. You guys got to take advantage. Stop crying about it. It is what it is. You're gonna get punched in a football game. It's gonna happen. Last question. Johnny Newton, the stats say he had a great game, Hall. What did the film say? What do you hope to see from him in Week 18? Tough to repeat the stat line.
Yeah, I mean it's tough to get 3 sacks in a game back to back. What do you have, like 9 tackles for loss? I think that could be something. Yeah, I think he had like 8 or 9 tackles for
He did
loss.
not have 8 or 9 tackles for loss.
I'm pretty sure he did. You can look it up.
I don't think so, man.
I'm gonna look it up right now while I keep talking. But no, but I mean, if you just put the sack stat to the side, it's hard to get 3 sacks in a game back to back games unless you're like freaking Miles Garrett or something like that. And I don't think Johnny Newton's Miles Garrett. But I would say that what I would want to see is just the consistency from last game carry over to this game as far as like the high motor, staying after the quarterback. I mean, let's be honest. He's going to be horrible in the run game probably his whole entire career because he's way too undersized. He's just getting thrown around in the trenches. But if he can show the staff that, like, hey, I deserve a little bit more reps on passing downs or a little bit more reps as far as, like, scheme me around the run game so I can get after the quarterback maybe. I think maybe he can show that. But, yeah, I mean, at this point, what is he, 2 years into his career? If he can just hopefully turn out to be a good pass rusher from the interior, then I would love that. But overall, as far as like a defensive lineman that has to play the run game and rest the passer, I think he's only going to be able to live up to some of his potential as a pass rusher. So just get after Jalen Hurts and I'll be happy. I don't know.
So how many tackles for loss did he have?
I don't know. I thought he said 8 or 9, but it's probably wrong since you're asking me the question.
I thought you were looking it up. Can you look it up?
I wasn't looking. I just
All right,
was
look
talking.
it up. But if it is 8 or 9 that he had in the last game, I'm looking at 12. Those are rookie numbers, baby. We got to pump those numbers up. You know what I'm saying? We got to get higher. We got to go. In all reality, need to see another sack to make sure that is a legitimate thing. But ultimately, what did the film say? The film said that he was very bad.
That's what it was. He combined for 9 tackles. There we go.
What was the tackles for loss, though?
It doesn't say. Hold on.
At least 3.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, that's true.
But the film said that against the run, not as formidable. And that's really what you want to see that take the next level for Johnny. And obviously, getting after the quarterback is number one. It's going to make you a lot of money in this league. You would just want to be able to see that first and foremost. But you would love to be able to see Johnny be able to showcase himself in the run game and stabilizing the trenches. Make no mistake that without Daron Payne, you kind of saw the middle of the field open up for those offenses. Typically this year, they were bludgeoning us on the outside, and that was purely because of what our defensive tackles were doing against the run. Without Daron Payne up there, it was wide open. It was an open dam, so to speak, and they could do whatever they wanted. So I think that in this game, you need to see Johnny Newton be more stout at the line, hold anchor down, be able not to be pushed around in those double teams. You got to get lower in the other two. and try to clog some things, and I'll let that water through. But with Johnny, you just need to see another sack and see better output from the run. And I think he go into the offseason with very high expectations. What about you, Goody?
Yeah, yeah. Just build on it. Don't press. Don't press. You obviously
Press.
last week he kind of unlocked something, right? So all he needs to do is just figure out what that is without overthinking it, and just know that this is the last game. Obviously this is a division rival. Obviously we're coming off of that situation from a week ago at the end of the game. So there's going to be some high energy, and you just want to come out and again, get a sack. Just let's fortify that performance that we saw a week ago with the finale. Give us a sack for the finale so we go into the off season. Feeling confident about what we have there.
I just want him to do something so we don't got to have an all season of Adam Peters sucks. He drafted John Newton at 36. Even though
That would be fantastic.
It'll happen anyway, but
let's silence the critics. Johnny Newton, silence the critics.
Yeah, well, you got to know that we're going to get that regardless.
That's why I said it's going to happen regardless. But
I know what you're saying. And Hog Farmer Keith says, whenever you guys are bored, get me on and let's talk some hard truths. Yeah. He didn't know that I was kidding this morning when he put out a tweet saying that Jaden's been injured all year. And, I'm just giving Keith crap because I know that he's probably stressed out with everyone commenting at him. So I tweeted back at him to calm his tits. And he was like, I'm not wrong. And I was like, dude, I'm messing with him at this point. Like, it's almost like reading away with Keith. But I told him after the Philly game, let's talk and let's chat. I'd love to be able to talk to Keith again. It's been a while, man. It's been a while. It has.
One of the OGs of the podcast.
Yeah. Now, real quick predictions for the Philly game. What do you got, Goody?
I'm gonna go with a battle. It's gonna be a battle. It's gonna be a low-scoring game. And Washington is going to bloody up the Eagles prior to their mission throughout the playoffs. Washington gets the dub.
Yeah, Washington is going to take out that chink of armor. They're going to showcase it. They're going to put it in the spotlight as much as the Bills already did that. But just saying, we're gonna do that to Philly this week, and we're getting our retribution for that fight in the 2-point conversion. We're getting it. We're sitting at 7. Everyone's going to complain that we lost. So what? We're at 7, dude. Washington wins 40-0.
I like it.
Well, I thought that Philly wasn't going to have anything to play for, but I guess they got to play for positioning now. So it looks like they're going to be playing their starters.
Good. 40-0.
However long the game is a game for. Just based off of the last couple of weeks. Even though they did kind of have a good office day against us. I don't know. I'll say Philly wins just because we don't have all our horses out there. It's week 18. I know they're going to come out there and fight, but I feel like it's going to be like the last couple of weeks where they're going to show some fight but eventually lose. I'll go Philly 26, Washington 20.
All right. Johnny Newton gets his 9 tackles for loss. Like Paul said he was going to before.
Hey, man, I was kind of just randomly scrolling through the stats.
Mikey Samerstill's is going to have 2 or 3 picks.
I think Terry only needs like 400-something yards to keep his 1,000 yards.
Why you got to steal my bits? Terry needs 400 yards in this game to reach 1,000. Terry's going to reach at 400. We're gonna have Bill rush for 2 or 3 touchdowns and 100-some yards.
Well, it's a parlay of a lifetime.
Absolutely, dude. So go with the over with Washington. Washington play.
If Terry gets like 40 targets, I think he can get it done.
It's possible. It's quite possible. He's done it before.
But then how's Bill going to get the 20 carries, 50 carries he needs to get to 1,000 yards?
He's not. He's going to score a touchdown every time he touches the football.
I guess we just got to run like 90 plays in this game. Like, Cliff's got to go back to his Texas Tech days.
3 carries, 180 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's Bill's stat line for the game.
That stat line would legit, you can just retire now. You're going to the Hall of Fame.
All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. Happy New Year's to you all. We'll see you guys again. The Colonel's coming to visit tomorrow for a couple days. Spend, I think, New Year's together, and then we'll be able to see you guys after the Philly game, hopefully talking to Hog Farmer Keith. So I appreciate it if you made it this far. Thank you to your questions from Tim Towner, Deluxe, the Colonel. You guys are awesome. Appreciate you guys. I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
Goody.
All right, you guys, have a good week. Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram